Alright, with UFC 300 right around the corner, everybody's been talking about what's going to headline UFC 300, right? This event is mostly going to be taking place in April 2024, which I guess, to be fair, is like 5 months away, so it's not really around the corner, but we have all the pay-per-views up to UFC 300, right? We know UFC 299 is going to be headlined by Sean O'Malley and Ilya Taporia, but we don't know yet who is going to headline UFC 300. Now, there has been a lot of talks. Is it going to be Conor McGregor? Is it going to be Michael Chandler? I'm done guessing. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys what I think should be UFC 300, what should be the main card, the pay-per-view. I'm only going to do the pay-per-view. If you guys want me to do the prelims, maybe in another video. But for now, I'm going to be telling you guys what I think should headline UFC 300. What is my main card? What is my, idea, dream card for this? Now, before we get into what my card is going to be, all 5 fights, I want to remind you guys, hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share. We're trying to 20K by the end of the year. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, so now you guys are going to help me with that goal. And today, I want you guys to comment in the comment section below your dream UFC 300 card. You know, I want to see the full card. If you don't want to do the full card, at least tell me what should be the main and co-main event. I will reply to you. I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say. Give me some ideas. I'm not claiming to have the perfect card here, but this is just some of my personal fights, what I think should be there. Now, for this, I think UFC 300 should be a spectacle, right? There's, of course, a ton of fights, and honestly, it was very hard for me to even narrow it down. Like, originally, I had 3 title fights on there. I even put at one point Aspinall versus Miocic, which isn't on the list, but almost did make the list. I really want to see that fight. That would be an awesome fight. But overall, I decided to come up with something realistic-ish, and what I mean by that is you guys are gonna watch this video and be like, realistic, are you serious? Because there's something on this list I know you guys are going to be like, what the hell, Jack? But scheduling wise, I try to make it realistic. That's why I didn't put John Jones on here, because obviously he's going to be out until June with that injury. So I think if not Conor McGregor or Michael Chandler, I think you gotta put John Jones and Stipe on there. But obviously that fight can't materialize because of John Jones, so I'm making it realistic-ish. But guys, let's get into it. What do I think should open up the main card? And the first fight of the night is going to be Paul Felder versus Jim Miller. Now, Paul Felder hopped back into the USADA testing pool saying, hey, he might fight again. This isn't like a confirmation. He said, hey, he might not fight. He just wanted to join and maybe get into UFC 300 and get a fight there. And who else would be perfect other than the UFC veteran Jim Miller? Now, Jim Miller has been on UFC 300, UFC 200, and now hopefully he will probably end up his career at UFC 300. I assume they got to put him on that card somewhere, even if it's on the prelims, right? Because he's been on all these events. There's so much hype about him being on this UFC 300 card. It's going to be awesome for him, and that is a good fight because Paul Felder, this is a competitive matchup. He retired from the sport. He's coming back. He's been inactive, right? This is a tough matchup because both these guys are kind of on the same playing field. These aren't, guys in their prime. They're both on the older side. Both have taken a lot of damage. Both have taken losses in the past few years. I think it's a fun matchup. Neither of these guys are going to be fighting for titles, of course, but I think it's an even matchup, and that's what I love, and that's what most fans love. Even matchups for these veterans, and that's what I want. I'm going to open up the card with a sweet moment, 2 UFC veterans going at it. And for the next fight, I'm going to be picking Ian Gary versus Jeff Neal. Now, this fight was supposed to happen at UFC 292 back in Boston in August, but Jeff Neal wound up pulling out. Neil Magny filled in for him. And yes, Ian Gary does have a fight in December against Vicente Luque, and he might starch Vicente Luque. We don't know what's going to happen in that fight. But regardless, I think you could kind of make this matchup. I don't think that this is really a tough matchup to make whether he wins or loses. Like, he'd have to really starch Luque for this matchup not to make sense. But the beef is there. I mean, these two have been going back and forth. I mean, Jeff Neal didn't like the fact that Ian Gary was wearing a mugshot of his, and then he pulled out. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of bad blood, and I think why not? And I think especially if Ian Gary does lose the fight against Vicente Luque, which is possible. Vicente Luque is still very good. Why not let him bounce back with a Jeff Neal victory? And that would just be such a fun fight. And I think it'll make a little more sense as we go up this card as to why I'm putting Ian Gary on there. But I think you guys could already guess why. But for the next fight, I know you guys are in the comment section. You guys are going to come for me. You guys are going to say, Jack, what are you talking about? The third fight, the featured bout of the pay-per-view, I'm making Logan Paul versus Dylan Danis. Guys, I know what you guys think. You guys already hear it. You already hear the dislikes. I'm sorry, guys. I know a lot of you guys aren't going to like this answer. But I think you guys probably figure out Conor McGregor is going to be somewhere on this card. We're going to get into where in a minute. But yeah, he's somewhere in this card. That's why I put Ian Gary on here. Dylan Danis is, of course, teammates with Conor McGregor. And Conor McGregor has been pushing for Dylan Danis to be signed to the UFC. And this isn't the first time, right? I mean, Artem Lobov fought Nate Diaz's teammate, I believe, on that UFC 202 card where Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor fought for that second time. So this isn't like a new thing, right? We've seen Conor McGregor, even on The Ultimate Fighter, bring in his teammates. And the UFC obeying him and saying, hey, okay, well, we'll give these guys a shot. And I think that's what they got to do here. And I think for Dylan Danis, a lot of people want him to be in the UFC, right? There's a lot of talk between the two. And I think when you look at that, the promotion for that Logan Paul and Dylan Danis fight, I mean, the promotion was huge. And while the fight didn't live up to it, I think we can all agree an MMA matchup is a lot more competitive. Obviously, Logan Paul has a striking advantage. We saw it in their fight. Not that really Dylan Danis showed any striking, but we could clearly see Logan Paul has a striking advantage there. And it wasn't like a devastating loss for Dylan Danis, right? I mean, Dylan Danis did nothing in the fight, granted, but it wasn't like he got knocked spark out and now is like a meme on the internet. He is kind of a meme on the internet, internet still. And whether you like it or not, whether you want to say that's Dylan Dennis' fault or not, there's always going to be people out there that say, well, if it was an MMA fight, you know, Dylan Dennis would win. Or if it was an MMA fight, Dylan Dennis would actually try. There's so much controversy and there's so much background. I mean, the beef between Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis. Now, do I think that this fight will happen? No, I don't think so. I think Logan Paul does regret picking Dylan Dennis, and I don't think he wants to give him much attention after the whole Nina situation. But on Logan's side, right, Logan wanted to join the UFC, right? And what matchup makes more sense? I can't think of a good matchup for Logan Paul in the UFC other than this Dylan Dennis fight, because let's be honest, Dylan Dennis is not a complete mixed martial artist, at least that we've seen so far. He's mostly a guy, I mean, he pulled guard in one of his fights. He's a very jiu-jitsu heavy guy. That's mostly what he relies on. We don't really see him setting up things with his strikes, and I feel like it's a winnable matchup for Logan Paul and a winnable matchup for Dylan Dennis. Now, I think I would wind up picking Dylan Dennis, but there's 100,000% an absolute possibility that Logan Paul goes out there and knocks him out. They're smaller gloves. Dylan Dennis' main defense was keeping his arms up like this. In MMA, can't do that. The gloves are a lot smaller. The padding is not there. You can't put your hands up like that, otherwise you're gonna get hit by Logan, especially with the fast jabs that he brings. And like I said, Logan's always wanted to do MMA. He's always talked about it. He's always said he wanted to be in the UFC. I think this is a perfect opportunity. UFC 300. This thing would do a lot of pay-per-views, I think, if you had that fight. Now, will it happen? I don't think Logan Paul will agree to it, but you never know. With UFC 300, with Dana White involved, you never know what could be made. Now, I don't think the UFC will try to make this fight. I don't even know if they're going to try to sign Dylan Dennis, but I do hope that this fight goes down on UFC 300 as a featured bout. Now, the co-main event, I talked about this on the channel. I think the co-main event should be Israel Adesanya versus Hamza Chimaev, but I'm going to make this one 5 rounds. Now, Israel Adesanya is in a bad place right now, right? He just lost to Sean Strickland, and then a year ago, he lost to Alex Pereira, and obviously, he beat Alex in the beginning of the year, which now looks like a really good victory. But truth be told, a lot of people are still throwing a lot of disrespect on Israel Adesanya's name. They're looking at Alex Pereira, who just won last week the light heavyweight title, and they're forgetting that Izzy beat him. Izzy beat him in the beginning of the year and knocked him out. Now, I'm an Alex Pereira fan, and I'm not trying to say, oh, you guys should like Izzy or anything like that, but there is disrespect, guys. At the end of the day, I'm not the biggest Israel Adesanya fan, but the guy had the title since 2019 all the way up to 2022. That's 3 years. He fought the best of the best. I mean, he fought Robert Whittaker, fought Paulo Costa, fought Marvin Vettori. I mean, the guy cleared out his division, let's be honest. And although he fell up short against Sean Strickland, and by a lot, let's be honest, because that was a very dominant win from Sean Strickland, I think you have to try to build back Israel Adesanya. If I'm Israel Adesanya, I'm looking at what can I do to get my career back, to get the title shot, to get these opportunities. Now, you could say maybe you should go fight Alex Pereira light heavyweight. I said that. I don't think that's what's going to wind up happening. But when you look at the middleweight division right now, I think the toughest matchup on paper, that, you know, the guy that has all the hype, I think you should take on Hamza Chimaev, and I actually think that's a winnable matchup. I think judging from Hamza Chimaev's last fight, especially it being 5 rounds, I mean, we saw Usman, I thought he won round 1 and 2 pretty clearly, and I didn't think that Hamza Chimaev did enough to get a 10-8 in the first round, so I thought Usman won the fight. And let's be honest, Israel Adesanya is a bigger Usman, and obviously they have very different traits in fighting, let's be honest. Obviously, one's a very good kickboxer, while the other one's a wrestler that's kind of transitioned to more of a boxing style. Israel Adesanya is very much a kickboxer, but he has really good takedown defense, right? We've seen he has really good balance. He's very strong, deceivingly strong. And I think even if Hamza Chimaev ragdolls him in the first round, and Israel Adesanya loses that first round, he got now 5 rounds, or 4 rounds, I should say, to make that up, to pick him apart at range. And Israel Adesanya being a master at range, I think it will be a problem for him. I think it will be a problem for Hamza Chimaev to get those takedowns without it being defended, because Israel Adesanya is just so tall and he's rangy. And Hamza Chimaev, he hasn't really fought somebody that tall before. So I think that actually Israel Adesanya would wind up winning that matchup, and I think that is an unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people would probably pick Hamza Chimaev, seeing where Israel Adesanya's reputation is right now. But I think this would be a perfect bounce back fight for Israel Adesanya. I think you should push for this fight. And also for Hamza Chimaev, he gets a lot by beating Israel Adesanya. I mean, that's an immediate title shot. You can't argue against that, right? Especially if he does something crazy like submit him in the first round. But the main event, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised to hear this. I think Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler should be the main event, and I think it might be the main event here. Now, this is a massive fight. I mean, Conor McGregor, I mean, he's been out of the ring now for 2 years. It'll be almost 3 years by UFC 300. It'll just be a few months away. We're coming up on 3 years that he lost to Dustin Poirier in that second fight. Conor McGregor has been absent from the sport, and honestly, the sport has felt it. I mean, there hasn't been a superstar that has taken his place, because Conor can, you know, just bring everybody. I mean, non-MMA fans, MMA fans, everybody knows Conor McGregor. Everybody knows when he fights, and having him on a card like UFC 300, they should have had, you know, Nate Diaz and him at UFC 200, and then Conor McGregor kind of messed that whole thing up. But I think UFC 300 would be the perfect opportunity to have this fight, because this is not just, you know, Conor McGregor's return. This is a competitive and risky matchup for Conor McGregor. While I do think Conor is going to beat Michael Chandler, and there are a lot of question marks that do make me wonder, can he? It's still a very interesting matchup, because forget the wrestling of Michael Chandler. That's a whole other discussion. I mean, he can go out there and take him down, tire out Conor, and then beat him. But forget about that. The power of Michael Chandler is very deceiving. We've seen Conor McGregor get caught by overhand rights from Khabib. Imagine for Michael Chandler, a guy that cracks like that, a guy that has so much power, and depending on what weight class this is going to be, this could be very dangerous for Conor, and it's a very risky fight, a very close fight. You cannot know who is going to win this one, and a big opportunity for for Michael Chandler, so I think it would only be good to see Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler headline UFC 300. Let me know what you guys thought about my card, man. I actually would be really hyped with this card. I think this is a fun card. I'm a UFC fan, so I think you guys are probably gonna like it too, but I know there's probably some unrealistic ones in here, but this is just my dream card so far. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Obviously, anything could change within the next few months. You know, obviously we have some people that are fighting, you know, in this month. But guys, thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, and I'll see you guys in the next one.